Good. And Jim Hart here. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's really happening in relationships with people with BPD, or loved ones, in any relationship type. But what's really happening the more you try to work it out, the more you try to help, the more you try to rescue, the more you give, the kinder you are. Why is that seemingly making it, maybe you don't realize, but incrementally worse? You know, every time there's a cycle of on and off again relating, or they withdraw, or they get triggered and they come at you with rage, etc., blame. What is it with these cycles? And what's happening with all this cycling around that they're doing, that you're experiencing, that you're being held hostage to in many ways? What's happening? Why is it so painful? Because really, with the intermittent reinforcement, like I talked about in my last video a little bit, I think, maybe I didn't, I don't know. But with intermittent reinforcement, with your hopes, with how you still love this person, or you trying to believe in who you thought they were, and that's not who you're experiencing anymore, or rarely if ever, or maybe not at all anymore. So what's happening in their cycles of on and off and being triggered and, approach avoidance and not being able to stay close for engulfment, not being able to stay away for the fear of abandonment that distance creates. All of these cycles in relationships with people with BPD, well, especially in a significant other relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, partner relationships especially, is that what's happening and why it gets exponentially painful for you. There's so many reasons, right? But the key reason why it gets exponentially painful for you is because these cycles mean that you're actually putting in all this effort, all this love, all this care, all the attempt at rescue, etc. And the result is, and many people don't realize this when it starts, or for quite a while, or maybe years after, but what you're going through is that all your efforts are being rewarded with one thing, with the borderline cycles of splitting and, approach avoidance, fear of abandonment, fear of engulfment, not knowing how they feel, on and off again relationships. Sometimes they cheat on you, etc. What's happening is you're getting closer and closer apart. And what do I mean by that? Well, the longer you're in a relationship, the more you invest, the more you think somehow it's going to work out. And the closer that you will feel at times in closeness, for as long as it might last, if you can get back there with a person with BPD, if they can come back to you and allow that closeness. So the more the cycles happen, up until and including on and off again, or ghosting and it's over, and then hoovering and it's back on again. Many people find this way too compelling and important and emotional. You're attached, you love this person with BPD. So many people get hoovered back in. So wherever you are in the relationship, even if it's new, the thing that starts to happen right away is that the person with BPD, their cycles, their triggers, their push-pull, their back and forth, their black and white thing, all of that, their splitting, is rendering the situation in the relationship. It's happening to you. What's happening to you? Happening to both of you in different ways, but what's happening to the partner, or the ex, the on and off again person in the life of somebody, or in relationship to somebody with borderline personality, untreated or not really significantly treated, is all these cycles. Each time you go around them, they bring you closer and closer apart. And some people don't know how to put a lot of things in words with what they're experiencing with somebody with BPD. But it is so painful. So many people are distraught. Many people are losing themselves. And it is to this occurring, cycling around of getting closer and closer apart. And you might think you're getting closer, yeah? And then, it's the splitting again, it's the devaluing again. And you might not ever be re-idealized constantly. Some people with BPD idealize more and then devalue, and it's a bigger swing. And some don't really get back to idealization. Some just get out of the devaluation. That's one way to put it. And so with all of this, you are getting each incremental experience of the person with BPD cycling around. You're getting closer and closer apart. You think about it that way for a minute. Does it give you a sense of your agony? Does it give you a sense of the pain, of all your efforts to love, to care, to want the relationship to work out, or if you've been ghosted, wherever you may be right now, you wanted it to work out. Closer and closer apart. It's devastating. It hurts more than a sudden breakup. I don't like to compare pain, but I think it is harder to recover from. Sudden breakups are really hard to recover from too. But so with people with BPD, they're cycling around and around and around, right? Like I mentioned before, push-pull, approach avoidance, getting triggered, being dysregulated, maybe blaming you, but pulling back or leaving the relationship, breaking up, ghosting, coming back, hoovering. This happens to a lot of people, and it's on again, off again. Cycles in the relationship or cycles of on, off again relationship. Each one brings you back closer, but it's closer apart. There's more and more accruing woundedness there. There's more and more hurt. There's more and more damage, to the point where people really have to say at one point or another, how much more of this can I take? And don't forget, the stress of all of this, stressful for people with BPD too, obviously, right? But the stress for loved ones, or even exes now, are on, off again. You're not sure where you are in all this right now. Are you an ex? Maybe you were an ex yesterday and you're not today. Maybe you won't be tomorrow. A lot of people are in this middle place of not knowing where they are with a person with BPD. And hurting badly, having their own codependent issues, which may or may not be aware of, but wanting to be closer again, wanting to get back with that person, or wanting to just get back on better footing with that person again. And yet, every time you think you get closer, right? You're getting closer, but closer apart. Accruing damage. And I was going to say the stress of it all too, like with narcissists, okay? So people with BPD aren't, some are comorbid, but many of them, like, they're not the same as a narcissist. And so when this is happening to you, you really need to think about what you're going through, how many times you cycled around with somebody, or you've been cycled around to get closer and closer apart, how much more damage you're accruing, how much more pain you're actually in, and the stress of all that pain with getting closer and closer apart, but trying to fight that with all you've got, trying to make it work in spite of everything, because these relationships, unless and until somebody is significantly treated, and usually if somebody is going to go and get significantly treated, it's not going to save a relationship. More often than not, can't say 100% of the time. So as these cycles are happening and you're getting closer and closer apart, that's why it hurts more every single time. You're accruing more damage, more woundedness. Sometimes also builds resentment. So you're trying to love somebody, but you can't really trust them anymore. People with BPD don't have any trust, but loved ones, partners, exes are on and off again. You don't know where you are in the whole equation. You can't really let go, because, again, emotional dissonance, cognitive dissonance. And this is the person that you just think was meant for you. You might think this is your soulmate, but that stuff, it's like you could have a soulmate, but this isn't it. You know, the person with BPD is not your soulmate. And the thing is, there's not necessarily only one, but people have different beliefs. But the point is, so all of the cycling around that people with BPD do, whether you look at it as, you know, somewhat idealization to devaluation, or not necessarily to idealization, but devaluation to kind of like, okay, we're sort of okay here. The cycles are really creating for you a continued closer and closer apart situation. And then you have to realize that this stress can really impact your health. Stress can really impact people in so many different ways. And in the world we're living today, we all have to be doing the best we can for our health. Even though it doesn't look like it, I'm doing my best too. But I just want to say, it's the closer and closer apart. So it's the damage accrued. It's what's happening in cycles, cyclical ways. Even if it's within a relationship, or could be on and off again the whole relationship, as people go through this for years sometimes. Getting more and more hurt, losing more and more of yourself, because the cycles just build this reality experience, this experience of closer and closer apart, over and over again. And I can't think of any other way to put it. And I'm going to have more coming on this too, because this idea of the cycles and the relationship, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of being in a relationship with somebody who might not even be diagnosed yet with BPD, or who's untreated for sure, or unless until significantly treated, and can't hang around and wait for that either. What do I really mean by closer and closer apart? Getting, you know, you might be really invested already, but you love them so much, and there's something subconsciously going on for you with codependence, etc. And like I said in another video, you keep pursuing the relationship, even if it's been really off, really on. It's not the same for everybody, but this happens to so many people. So the thing is, this closer and closer apart. Well, you can feel closer if they hoover you back, or if you're in a relationship and they sort of come back from that devaluing place, then maybe for a brief period of time, or a certain pattern amount of time, depending on the person that, you know, as you get to know the cycles of the person that you're with, BPD, a certain amount of time, but it's not going to be that long, where you're closer. And then boom, another trigger, another rupture, more drama, more chaos, more rage, more whatever, because they need distance, or they just withdraw if you're quiet BPD. And then you're apart. And then you come back and might feel like you're closer. They come back, I mean, you know. And then you might, or you allow yourself, you re-engage a hoover, depending on the situation. And then you're closer again until you're about to be apart. And it's closer and closer apart, closer and closer apart. That takes a tremendous toll on people. And I know if you're somebody in a situation, if you can relate to this, I don't have to tell you how you feel, or maybe you need to check in more with how you feel. But the accruing damage of the cycles of people with BPD that are relationally impossible for people to maintain without really being hurt and wounded and losing yourself, and maybe affecting your health, and just feeling like you're losing your mind, like you're being driven crazy, so to speak. It's the closer and closer apart. And then when people, even when it's on and off again relating, I mean, the relationships are off, and then they're on, and then they're off, and then they're on. That's extreme closer and closer apart, right? But people don't know how to stop at the apart part, at the apart juncture, because you're in a world of hurt. And the more that you put into the relationship, and the more time, the more investment, the more you've been trying to be kind, the more you've tried to love through all of their cycles. And I'm just using the term cycle for, you know, splitting, for, you know, push, pull, approach, avoidance, conflict, for all the reasons why they just can't really relate to you in a healthy way. Closer and closer apart. And the agony of that. And how you lose yourself to that. And people still feel like they need to stay, like somehow there's hope to, have this work out. Where the person isn't going to get help, nothing's going to change. You can't change them, you can't fix them, you can't rescue them, like I'm always saying, which is really true. So have you ever thought about it like their cycles and you're being there, and whether it's in the relationship, like I said, or you're being re-hoovered and hoovered back, or you're reverse hoovering, is compelling. There's something you need to know more about yourself, and I'm out here to work with clients on that. Because closer and closer apart is an elongated, very extremely wounding way to end up when finally the apart part sticks. Whether they make it stick by ghosting and not coming back, or you make it stick by going, oh my God, I don't know what's happening here, but like I'm hurting and I don't even know who I am anymore. And maybe you're not sleeping, maybe you're not eating right, maybe a lot of things are happening, and especially in this world we live in right now too. But be aware of what's happening to you in the closer and closer apart. How you're experiencing closer and closer apart from what the person with BPD is doing in the splitting, in the cycling, in the approach avoidance, in the on-off relationships. Breaking up with you one day, wanting to get back the next day. Breaking up one day, getting 2 months later. Whatever the pattern might be, because individuals with BPD untreated or maybe even undiagnosed, they definitely have their own patterns of time and how they do this, or how it happens for them too. But cycles of people with BPD going to continually wound and hurt you, and you're accruing it, and it's going to affect your emotional health, your mental health, it's going to affect your physical health. And it is the cycles, as I have called it, and I don't know if anyone ever said this, but I think I coined this. I don't know. It doesn't matter really, but the cycles of the borderline in your life is going to give you the ever-repeating experience of closer and closer apart. These relationships often rupture, whether it's from the person with BPD side, they just walk away, they're done, or they cheat on you. They do so much damage. And it takes a lot of damage for a lot of people with codependency to give up on someone or to let go of someone with BPD, to look at yourself, to take care of yourself. And if this resonates with you, just know I'm out here to help you to do that. It's not easy. People need help with it. Very painful, very difficult. So ask yourself if this makes sense, if it resonates with you, or if you're not going through this right now, have you gone through it? You still need to heal from it? Do you not realize why it was so impactingly damaging to you that you're not the person? Nobody really is after a relationship with somebody with BPD, and I've had clients who've been together with them for only maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks in dating, and they're not the same, and they really need healing and recovery. The cycles of people with borderline personality, especially untreated, going to be the closer and closer apart. It's crazy making for people, and it hurts in a way that I can't even put words to. So if that's happening to you, just know when you get closer again, you're only getting closer to get closer to being apart. That's the really sad truth about the relational rupture and the impossibility of relationships with untreated people or not well-treated people, significantly enough, with BPD. So take care. I hope that was helpful. I hope it gives you food for thought. The cycles of borderline personality, in any which way, in any relationship type, bring you always around and around, closer and closer apart. And the end result will be, one way or the other, unless you're going to hang on for dear life and lose yourself and maybe even your life if it wrecks your health, etc. The cycles are closer and closer apart. And it's the closer and closer that's so compelling, right? Until all of a sudden it's apart again. It's apart. It's off. It's over. It's ruptured. The cycles of the borderline. Your experience on the other side of the person with BPD. Closer and closer apart.